What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the opening area in a Mario game? Go ahead, think about it. Odds are it'll feature bright green colors, a nice grassy hillside, and a pleasant, upbeat theme. Whether your mind jumped to Super Mario World or Mario 64, to the classic NES games or to the new Super Mario series, or even to the dozens of Mario spin-offs, it's practically a staple of the plumber's titles to start you off somewhere nice and pleasant. But there's one game that rips that staple out, going out of its way to crumple up these classic Mario tropes, turn the page, and write its own beloved story.
Don't worry, I'm all out of paper puns from here, so I'll stop. Let's sail to a place far out of the Mushroom Kingdom's shadow, to the town of Rogueport, the hub at the center of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door.
Within moments, this town sets itself apart from just about anything Mario's ever seen before, as Rogueport reveals a new side to this franchise that's well beyond the norm. Smiling clouds and happy hills are replaced by grimy buildings covered in graffiti and garbage. Where most people in the Mushroom Kingdom are friendly and happy to help, here people get mugged in broad daylight. Most Mario towns have a lovely fountain sitting in the town square, with the calming rush of water adding a serene presence to the area, and usually with a nice little star or something on top. Yeah, no, Rogueport's town square just has a f***ing noose. It's just sitting there, waiting, almost begging for another criminal to be caught and sent to the gallows. Again, this is Mario we're talking about here, the Mickey Mouse of video games, and right there's a noose! Today I'm gonna dive into what it is about Rogueport that makes it such a unique and iconic place within the Mario franchise, and how Thousand-Year Door uses Rogueport to become one of the most beloved Mario games out there simply by shredding classic Mario conventions.
Okay, I had one more paper pun, I lied.
From the opening moments of Thousand-Year Door, you might not expect much of Rogueport. The title screen is, simply put, unassuming, with a nice grassy background that would feel right at home next to something like Mario World. In a storybook style, we're told the fable of a town that one day sunk beneath the earth, and that lifetimes later people would settle where this town once stood, with rumors swirling of a legendary treasure buried below. This would all fit perfectly with any Mario game. Even just 3 years after this game's release, Super Mario Galaxy featured the same kind of intro structure. Well, it would probably be, a nice fit until we turn the book's page a fourth time, and yep, that's just the gallows pictured front and center while Princess Peach searches for the treasure. The fact that this even made it into an official Nintendo game at all, let alone in the opening of a Mario game, is shocking. And that sight alone makes it absolutely clear that this won't be your regular old Goomba-stomping adventure. Within the first few minutes of the proper game, as Mario arrives in this town to join Peach, the ship's captain tries to warn you about just how bad Rogueport really is, even showing cautious uncertainty when this small Italian man swears that a princess asked him to come overseas searching for treasure before anxiously speeding away. This introduction perfectly establishes Rogueport's reputation, it sets up an aura of mystery, and it immediately gets you wondering. I hear some of you thinking, surely it can't be that bad, right? This game is rated E, it's Nintendo after all.
Boom! Dead body!
In the span of 10 minutes during my playthrough, Mario encountered a Goomba complaining about being defrauded with a fake credit card. I didn't even know this universe had credit cards. A gang war between the Pianta Mafia and the Robo Gang. Don't worry, we'll talk about that one later. A dingy bar/hostel with a leaky roof. And the moment that Mario enters the town's east side, a robbery. A bandit flies by Mario and his new companion Goombella and pickpockets half of Mario's coins on the way past. That's right, Mario gets mugged, which is, by the way, the lesser-known sequel to Mario Teaches Typing. Now you can choose to let this larceny go if you wish, or you can chase the bandit to the back alleys behind Rogueport Square. Back here, there's even more graffiti. Trash and broken bottles line the cobblestone, clearly not cleaned up for months, and several wanted posters hang on the walls. Beyond the posters, a couple people hang back here too. To the right, you'll find a Goomba who tells you he's wanted, which, isn't the best way to keep a low profile, but what do I know? As you move back to the left, this guy tells you about how he blew a bunch of money gambling, but he's sure he'll hit the big one next time. And all the way to the left is our thief's hideout, and good God, look at this place! There's trash spilled across the floor, roaches and bugs scrambling, what looks like an upturned mattress on the wall, and depending on which version of Thousand Year Door you play, bloodstains and a chalk outline cover the floor. This one was a step too far for the international localizations, but if you play a Japanese copy, yeah, there's just murdered toad blood spilled all over the floor like it's nothing. All of this is 10 minutes into Mario's stay in this Skid Row. Every corner of Rogueport has something just like these moments that highlights just how low this town truly is. And it has this larger effect of making you wonder what kind of game Thousand Year Door might become. If you're like me, Thousand Year Door isn't your first Paper Mario. In fact, technically it's the only one I hadn't played until a few weeks ago. I loved 64, I suffered through about half of Sticker Star before I just couldn't take it anymore, and I've played at least a bit of Super Paper Mario. And from those experiences, I can safely say that Rogueport is unlike anything else in even the Paper Mario sub-series. Although I came into Thousand Year Door knowing bits here or there about the pro wrestling chapter or other facets of the game from both word of mouth and the occasional YouTube video, I didn't expect just how far this game goes to push its first impression. And that impression doesn't change as you return here between chapters. If anything, this port gets seedier over time. See, as you progress in the Thousand Year Door, Mario's new allies and abilities will allow him to discover new alleyways, new characters, and new secrets that continue to set this town apart from anything else in the Mario franchise. As an example of this, let's take an area that I'd consider Rogueport's closest analog and touch on the last Paper Mario game that I didn't mention a moment ago, Port Prisma from Paper Mario Color Splash. Color Splash, in addition to being the final Nintendo-published Wii U exclusive, which, wow, what a way to go, very clearly takes a page out of Thousand Year Door's book. I did it again, didn't I? I swear that one wasn't intentional. Tell me if this at all sounds familiar to you. Mario receives a letter, sails by boat to a port town to solve a mystery, and then journeys across the land to find about half a dozen special stars. Port Prisma can easily be seen as a take on Rogueport, a much more sanitized one that lines up more with the Mario style guide. Everything here is bright and bubbly, and the town is pretty well kept, albeit a little bit empty when Mario and Peach first arrive. Meanwhile, even in your first sight of Rogueport, you can see the planks of wood that are haphazardly thrown over the crumbling staircase that beckons your arrival. Port Prisma is gentrified, full of exclusively toads that almost all dress the same, act the same, and look the same. With Rogueport, developer Intelligent Systems created not only custom designs for the characters here, but also brand new species like craws, and almost segregated parts of this town. You don't really see toads hanging near the rougher areas of Rogueport, which probably says more about the species and class divide in the Mario universe than I really ever cared to think about until now. I'm just gonna move on because the more I think about that one, the worse it's gonna get. Instead, you're interacting with shady Goombas that claim to be fixers. You see bandits meeting together in hideouts, you're accidentally facilitating what's probably an illegal drug deal, or you're getting tips on how to manipulate the item markets between Rogueport and neighboring towns for a whopping 2 coin profit. But once you gain access to the west side of Rogueport, you'll find that you see very few ruffians, but many, many more toads. You'll get to see a cleaner side of this town that looks a lot more like Port Prisma, and you'll get to meet the Pianta Syndicate. This mafia group has revitalized the entire west side of Rogueport into an almost respectable place. Things are bright and clean, buildings are painted and well kept, but even here you can't help but feel like something is bubbling under the surface. Everybody in West Rogueport praises the Piantas for redeveloping the place and keeping the crime down, but of course when it comes to the mob, they're not keeping it down, they're keeping it for themselves. Mario quickly hears from local businesses, people, and yeah, even criminals about so-called protection fees, a classic mafia tactic. He encounters not one, but 2 different gambling options in this western plaza alone, and at all times one of the Pianta mobsters has his eye on our hero. Now keep in mind, in the same year that Thousand Year Door released, Nintendo removed gambling from the Pokemon Kanto remix, and here it is twice! Later on, Mario and the gang even meet Don Pianta himself when they need the Syndicate's help, and let's just say he's not a pleasant man. I mean, within moments of meeting him, he threatens to put you 6 feet under if you don't help solve his problem. You know what? Screw you, buddy. I'll just put myself 6 feet under. Remember that storybook intro and how it talked about an ancient town that disappeared underground one day? Well, in the least surprising twist about Rogueport, that town is still here, with a handful of Rogueport's inhabitants. What do we call those? Rogue Portuguese? Rogue Portuguese? I'm gonna go with Rogue Portuguese. With a handful of Rogue Portuguese that for one reason or another can't or don't want to show their faces topside. From inaccessible pathways to the destroyed fountain, honestly, this place is kind of in better shape than the town above. What's more, Rogueport's underground is home to a labyrinthine sewer system and the titular 1,000-year door. Between chapters, Mario and his crew must come here to find the location of the next crystal star in order to stop the villains from opening this door and finding whatever treasure that may lay inside. This shrine room on its own isn't anything unexpected. After all, there's obviously something special to Rogueport as we learn in the opening. But it's the dichotomy between this room and the rest of the town that drives you even further into 1,000-Year Door's plot. And on that note, let's take a look at Rogueport's above-ground theme, another perfect example of how deeply this area has been designed to throw the player off. This song almost follows you through the town as you play, with 3 distinct sections all juxtaposed to convey conflicting vibes. The opening section sets you up for a grand Mario adventure, with plucky and lighthearted notes and chords blasting you right at the start. If you listen carefully though, you'll start to notice that those notes are covering up a chaotic undertone, with heavy amounts of wet percussion and a more sinister beat that keeps you kind of on your toes. Then, on a dime, as if you've entered the grimy east side, Rogueport's theme reveals its true nature, dropping that front and really hammering in those heavier notes. This second section wouldn't feel out of place in a boss fight or in Bowser's castle, but here it is in the welcoming into the game. Just as Rogueport itself contrasts with your expectations of a Mario game, the theme lures you in with the promise of adventure before pulling that away just as quickly as that bandit pulled away half your coins. This is the game waking you and Mario up, showing you that this isn't some tourist area, this isn't going to be a nice, easy romp, this is something different. And right as you might have second thoughts about being here, right as you're wondering if that ship captain might have been right, those grittier undertones from the first part of the song slip out of the shadows and into the forefront, with no bright and bubbly chords to hide behind, just the sinister truth that this town only gets worse the longer you're here. But then just like that, the bubbly front returns. These 3 battling feelings almost rotate on cue, serving to keep you off your balance, to jerk you around before those triumphant choral sections bring you back to your base. This theme has quickly become one of my favorites in the overall Mario franchise, thanks to how it combines so many conflicting emotions and tones so seamlessly, while still being so fun to listen to. You truly couldn't write a better theme for this town than what's already here. But when you're underground in the ruins, with the 1,000-Year Door looking upon you, the gravity of Rogueport weighs down with an intimidating ambience. Should you even be here? It almost feels like you're stepping onto some holy ground, or is it unholy? What is it that caused these ruins to sink below the earth 1,000 years ago? For everything that Rogueport is, for all of the violence and the crime maybe 100 feet up, down here, none of that is in your mind. Instead, you're entranced with the 1,000-Year Door, with your mission at hand, because now, Rogueport is even more fascinating. Usually a shrine like this would be out in the wilderness, or in an abandoned temple nowhere near civilization, but instead, it's right beneath the worst town in the world. I'd say that once you've played this prologue, you'd be hard-pressed not to stick through it for the long haul. There's so much appeal in this opening hour alone that you'll feel like you have to see what's coming next. And the magical thing about Rogueport is what comes next. Despite this shocking, constantly conflicting opening, despite subverting what any player would expect from just about any Nintendo game, and despite seemingly bypassing Miyamoto's love for pure, bubbly, grassy first levels, Rogueport doesn't actually replace that first level trope, it just delays it a bit. See, just like Mario Odyssey would do over a decade later, this first impression is a primer, a warning that this isn't your same old same old. Super Mario Odyssey wanted it to be perfectly clear by starting with the dark, gloomy, Burton-esque Cap Kingdom that it wasn't a 120-star adventure. No, they cranked that game up to 999. And likewise, Thousand Year Door makes it perfectly clear by throwing Rogueport at you, by throwing the gallows and the muggings and the criminals and the foreboding underground shrine right in your face, that it's not just Paper Mario 2 or Super Mario RPG 3, it is not a safe game. Within just this first hour, Thousand Year Door demands your full attention, with the promise that it'll do things that no other Mario dared. And in both cases, just as your mind is prepared for a Mario game so tonally distinct from anything else in the series, hey, it's a grassy plain. Right as quickly as you've set yourself into the mindset to expect something brand new, right as the rubber band was stretched back, boom, it slingshots back to normal. Like Odyssey's proper opening in the Cascade Kingdom, Thousand Year Door's first chapter takes place in Petal Meadows, featuring a musical track that bounces so far back into classic Mario that even the signature flourish is front and center. This? What just happened? Surely that can't be right, can it? We just saw something totally out of left field for Mario. I was expecting more of that style, of an intriguing and gritty world. They can't just jump right back to the usual level 1 like nothing happened, right? And boom, dragon with a foot fetish, or in Odyssey's case, an actual T-Rex. Within a few seconds, the player's mind has triple jumped from something totally novel to something very much classic Mario, and then it bolts right back into the culture shock. You'd better check yourself for whiplash, because Thousand Year Door never slows down from here. Rogueport never truly becomes normal, even as you find that this entire part of the Mario world is just as crazy in its own way. Instead, Rogueport shows its hand up front, leaving the other areas and chapters of the game to play with your expectations over time, to make you wonder what the big quirk is gonna be this time around. This is a world with a pro wrestling federation on a floating airship, and that's probably the least over-the-top part of the entire game. Rogueport ensures that Thousand Year Door not only has one of the most memorable openings in the entire Mario franchise, but that when the town is brought into the larger context of Thousand Year Door's story, it's simultaneously distinct and right at home. For how stark of a contrast it is from the rest of the Mario series, Rogueport quickly becomes your anchor into this game's world building and its storytelling. It almost becomes a welcoming home away from home to Mario and his growing team. Yeah, it's a dump, but it's a dump that evolves over time with your party while still being the same old shantytown that threw you off in the first place. Rogueport will never struggle to surprise you, even as the rest of this game tries to catch up to the standard that this opening sets. Through its distinct nature, through its seediness, and the whiplash of the player's emotions, Rogueport frames an iconic, one-of-a-kind adventure, the likes of which I'm frankly not sure we'll ever see again in Mario. And for the record, I hope I'm wrong on that, but if you really think about it, the rest of the series hasn't been the same since Rogueport shocked Mario players around the world. After how far this game went past the traditional Mario style, after how many risks it took in establishing such an antithetical base for the game, Super Paper Mario moved more into action platformer territory than a beginner's RPG, attempting to bend genres instead of tones. Mario's had some weird moments since 2004, and it certainly had its fair share of noteworthy locales, but you could arguably credit Rogueport with establishing a Mario style guide for most of the games since, a bookmark point in the series' history before Miyamoto would step in and insist that Mario should be a bright and active experience. But perhaps that's a thought for another day.
And speaking of thoughts for another day, that's probably enough of mine for now, but there's still one set of thoughts that I would love to hear, and that's, well, yours. Did I miss something that, in your opinion, helped define Rogueport? Or, better yet, what levels or areas from other games or series stick out in your mind the most? This is a brand new series here on the Golden Bolt, and with your help, we can highlight noteworthy levels, areas, or even scenes from all across the gaming world. Let me know your ideas down in the comments below, or become a patron for as little as $1 a month to vote on and suggest topics for future videos both in this new series and more. As always, thank you very much for watching, sharing, subscribing, and supporting, and until next time, stay golden. Somebody take my wallet?
This video was produced in part thanks to the generous support of these Patreon backers, including the $5 Silverbolt supporters such as Mayor Hairbear. If you'd like to see your name on this list, you can do so by supporting the channel at patreon.com/thegoldenbolt. Thank you.